Welcome to our walkthrough for the UI, which is the user interface of the MMG Axis. This is where you can control all of the signal conversion on the device and utilize the NDI bridge. It is accessible via the shortcut on the Axis desktop, as well as via the local IP from any other machine on your network. Let's take a look. What we're covering here is the home button, how to encode a source, how to decode a source, the settings, network, NDI, including NDI Multicast, audio I/O, so the audio encode and audio decode, NDI Bridge, which includes the configuration, joining, hosting, and also additional information. So here it is, the Axis UI. And this is how all of your signal flow and conversion is managed. First of all, if we click on the home button, you'll see that you're greeted with what looks like a replica of the inputs on the back of the Axis device. So the SDI inputs numbered 1 to 4, and also 0, which you can see is for the reference in. The home button will always take you to this home page. You can also click on the settings cog to take you to the settings section, which we'll go through in just a moment. You can click on reboot at any time as well, and it gives you the option to either restart the Axis, which is just the Axis software, or to reboot the PC, so the whole machine. You've also got a shutdown button, which if we click on, you can see we will not be having any accidents because we have to confirm 3 times that we would like to shut down the PC. Next, we're going to look at how to encode a source. The first thing that we would do is click on the input or output. They're bidirectional, whichever you would like to actually use. So in this case, we click on number 1. We've got the option here to encode or decode. We're going to click on encode. And this means we're going to take the signal from SDI to NDI. We've got a few pieces of information here that are important, so we'll just go through those. One is the NDI group, which by default is public. If you're not working and using groups, then you want to keep this to public. If you are using NDI groups, then you will know what your groups are called and you can name it accordingly. You've got a button here to click for audio on or off. So that is whether we want to encode the audio that's coming on the SDI as well. And also a tally button. In order to name the stream, we can actually change the name in this box. So for example, if number 1 was actually a camera, we can have camera 01. Once we've done all of those things and we're happy with the information, we can click start. This will now start the NDI. You can see that it has started because you can see the information flow arrow has lit up green. And you can also see the same in the home screen. On the home screen, you will also notice that it has the name of the NDI source available for you to see for easy reference. Next, we're going to look at decoding a source. So in order to do that, we're going to click on one of the SDI ports that we want to use as a decoder, so an output. We would then select the decoder option. We can specify the NDI group. Again, this is set to public by default. Only change this if you're already working with NDI groups and know what to do in regards to isolating them. You can have the audio on and off. So we can choose to have audio coming out of the SDI as per the NDI, or we can take that away. It's entirely up to you for the use case that you are using. For the source, as a habit, we always click the refresh wheel just to ensure you've got the most up-to-date list of NDI sources available within your network. You then click on the drop-down menu and select the source that you would like to decode. So in this case, I'm going to take an Axis feed from what is called Axis test output 4. When we're ready, we click on start and we can see that the feedback arrow here is telling us that we are decoding on number 3. You can also go back to the home screen and see the name of the feed that you are decoding for easy reference. If we click on the home button, just to make sure we're definitely home, and then we can have a look at the settings cog. So we're going to click on the settings cog. This takes us through to another set of menus. This is for network, NDI, NDI Bridge, audio I/O, and also an information panel. First of all, we'll start with the network. The interface allows you to choose the Ethernet adapter that you would like the Axis software to communicate on. It doesn't affect the Ethernet adapter NDI Bridge uses, and this enables for complicated setups with multiple Ethernet networks. As default, with no adapter chosen, Axis software will use your main Ethernet set on your device in your Ethernet settings. If you're using a manual or static IP address, don't select DHCP and type your static IP address and subnet mask in the relevant fields. When selecting adapter, you can then choose to have a dynamic IP address by clicking the DHCP. When you have edited, make sure that you click the Save button. The next tab that we're going to look at is the NDI tab. Receive mode allows you to change the network protocol used to get and ingest the NDI signals. You can click the small arrow for a drop-down menu, and here you can select the protocol. If you aren't very familiar with NDI, we don't recommend using discovery servers, as it can start to become a lot more complicated. If you're running discovery servers, the settings for that can be found under the network mapping. We can change the name of the machine and also the discovery servers. We can also enable multicast. If you click this button to do so, we are then able to turn on multicast traffic. Do not do this if you are not familiar with NDI and network setups, because it can flood the network very, very easily. We always recommend the use of a Netgear Pro AV switch to eliminate any of these issues. When you have edited any settings, make sure to press Save to make the changes have effect. The next tab is the NDI Bridge tab. Here we have a toggle at the very start to say Enable NDI Bridge Service. If you do not want it running, simply click this to stop it. You have two modes in which to run Bridge. One is host and the other is join. We have the option to start on launch. If we click this slider, it means that anytime we start the Axis, the Bridge service will automatically start as well. We can choose the groups that we wish to share. Again, public is the default. If you have specific groups, then do change this. The bridge name, which in this case is MMG Axis Test 01, but you can also name your bridge anything that you would like, whatever is most useful to you. You will need to set up port forwarding on your router in order to utilize bridge in host mode. In this case, the port that we have open is 1975. You can watch our other videos that go through details on how to port forward traffic within your network if you're unsure on this. The encryption key is the password that you are setting. You will need to supply that information for anyone that is joining the bridge. The encoder settings, we're able to change the output. So we can have NDI HX, NDI high bandwidth, and no transcode. What this means is that any signals that are coming to the bridge are either all changed to NDI HX feeds, which we highly recommend due to the bandwidth. We keep them and change them all to high bandwidth feeds, or with no transcode, however they get to the bridge from your side of the network is exactly how they'll pass over the bridge. We can do this encoding as H.264 or HVEC. And we can also change the GPU processor that we're using. By utilizing auto, it will almost always go down the NVIDIA card option, which is what we recommend. However, you can divert the traffic to the Intel graphics if you wish. At the very bottom left, there is a slider to enable NDI4 compatibility mode. This is part of the legacy and the backwards compatibility of the Axis. Do not enable this if you have not got any NDI4 devices or programs running on your network. At the very bottom, you can see there is a slider for the quality of your streams across bridge. This will impact the size of the bandwidth and also obviously the quality. Now, I would always recommend that this sits around halfway. unless you are on a highly optimized network whereby you'll likely have a member of the IT team that is able to help you or work with you to ensure that the bandwidth will work on the system you're on. Finally, as always, click Save once you have made changes. When it comes to starting the bridge in host mode or join, then we click on the icon at the very top here, which says click to start NDI Bridge in host mode. Once clicked, it will say that it is waiting for clients. At this point, if you then join the bridge, it will then allow you to complete that connection. The other side of the bridge is join mode. So if we flip the slider here and go to join, you can see the settings are slightly different in that we do have to say what groups to share, so public or whatever name you have already got on your system. The name of the bridge, in this case, it is MMG Axis test _ bridge 04. This bridge name must not be the same name as the machine that is broadcasting the bridge. It will cause conflicts on the NDI bridge. If you're unsure, just add an extra couple of digits to the end of this. You will need to know the public IP address of the bridge host. This information is available on the machine that you're hosting on where you have set this up. You will need to specify the port number of the host, and you will need to have the same encryption key as the host. Again, if you're unsure around this, do watch our video on NDI Bridge as we go into a lot more detail of how this works and what you need to do. Again, with the encoder settings, we have the same options available to us. We can make sure that we've got NDI HX signals, NDI high bandwidth, or no transcode, so they are transported exactly as they are. We can encode as H.264 or HVEC, and as you can see with the graphics, we can set it to auto, which will almost always use the NVIDIA card, or we can specify Intel graphics. We always recommend using the NVIDIA card with the Axis, as it has been built with this principle in mind. Finally, we have the quality slider, which we would always recommend setting halfway if you are unsure. But if you are certain of your network capabilities, you can operate that on a much higher level of quality as well. Finally, as always, click Save to make sure any changes are saved. Once you have set up the join aspect of your bridge, you can simply click the icon at the top to begin this. As you can see, it says click to start NDI Bridge in join mode. It will tell us the feedback there, which is starting connection warm-up. And it tells us that it is connected to host as well, as we are currently running another machine as a host. The next tab is Audio I/O, so audio in and out. Firstly, for the audio out, which is converting an NDI signal to any other output, the outputs include Dante, any piece of hardware, or indeed the SDI ports. The NDI group we need to specify. Always use public unless you are familiar with setting up NDI groups on your network. The NDI source, we can click the refresh to always ensure that we have the most up-to-date list. And we can select an NDI source. In this case, I'll take the Axis test Vmix output 1. And we're going to send that to an output device. Now we can select here speakers. We could select Dante if we've got that. We can select a deck link, or we can select any other hardware such as a Focusrite that's attached to the machine as well. This enables us to move the audio signals in any format. In this instance, I'm going to select speakers. Once we are ready with those settings, we simply click at the very top to start the audio output. Once you've done so, the settings for the audio out will lock so that you're unable to edit them. You will only be able to edit them if you stop. And again, you can then choose a different set. For the audio in, this is an input coming into your Axis and then being encoded to NDI. we are able to choose the NDI group. Again, leave this on public unless you are certain or used to using the networks with named NDI groups. You can name the NDI stream. So this is the name that will appear on your network of the NDI stream. So for example, we can put Axis Audio Encode. We can choose the input device. So this is the device that we are using to pull the audio from and convert into an NDI. We can choose any physical hardware connected to the Axis machine. We can choose any SDI port of that. And we can also choose any Dante if we've got a Dante virtual sound card. Once you've chosen what you would like to encode, you simply click Save and then Start. Again, we can start and stop using the icons at the top here as well, and you get a feedback to tell you when that's on. The final piece of information on this settings area is the info panel. This shows us our license ID for the Axis software and the status of that license as well. This is simply information that may be useful and is good to keep a note of. If you'd like more information on the Axis, please head to the website mmgaxis.io or get in touch with myself or the MMG team. You can do that via the email address sales@mmgaxis.io.